used to play like yeah, but it's also people something I thought surgery should have the information all your unless the random is being added for what well, that's all. Yeah. It's even me first reference. It's not in the wrong. It's what time are we going to start this? Extra bits, bit on it's getting drawing out. I don't know. We'll make it like social media. It's yeah, and far it's starting to it's not a set because you already got a lot of things. High schools that's when it you that code is changed. So business
Morning, everyone. We're now ready to start, and we'll just hand over to Paul to get on with his talk.
Okay. It's going to be interesting. Good morning, Nottingham. Come on. Panto season. Good morning. Morning. That's more like it. Right.
No, it's not.
This is good. Yeah, well, that's the next bit, isn't it? This is a talk about how to create an awesome year.
No, it's not.
Oh no, it's not. Thank you. What I'm going to do in this talk is going to be practical at some point. So we're going to be doing something with a pen and some paper. The people that are at home, if you can grab a pen and some paper, if you've not got one, we'll also be sharing a canvas with you later on when it comes to using a bit of a framework to maybe, hopefully, accelerate your thinking in about how you can make the long-term change for yourself next year. And I'm going to share some top tips, so stuff that I've tried over the last 8 years, I think it must be now, to kind of stay laser focused on the things that matter, or the things that really matter in your life. So I'll share some top tips at the end of the session as well. Hopefully you can take away and apply to your own change plan for next year. I'm going to touch a little bit on, well, the main focus early on is going to be about New Year's resolutions. Anybody made a New Year's resolution? Oh, no New Year's resolutions in here. That's interesting. I'm going to start with a question then. Based on your experience of last year, how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Don't shout out the answer now. We're going to come back to it in a minute. But think about it. Think about, what was 2024? What was it like for you last year? Was it the worst year of your life? Was it terrible? Or was it on the other end of the scale? Was it a 10? Like really awesome, everything went perfectly? Or was it somewhere in between? I'm going to come back to that in a bit because I think it's quite an important question, particularly when we get to the end of the year and kind of reflecting on the past and thinking about what you want to change to improve for the future. Why am I so interested in this, and where's this design thinking dad thing come from anyway? So this is me back in 2016. Look pretty happy on the surface there. These are my 4 kids. This is what we call a Bailey stack. This is almost a full stack. We just need the wife in there as well, but she's obviously taking the picture. And on the kind of surface there, I probably look really happy. I'm having a great time on holiday with the kids. But underneath the surface, things weren't so great. You know, at work, I felt like I got into kind of career cul-de-sac and I couldn't really progress and couldn't persuade the company to work in a way which I thought they should be working. At home, I've got 4 kids. You know, it's constantly on the go. Never really felt like I had time for the things that was matter. I was kind of rushing from one thing to the next. And then something kind of unexpected happened. My oldest son became quite ill, quite seriously ill, and we didn't know what was wrong with him, and we were having to go to the hospital, and all this was taking a bit of an impact on me, both kind of physically and mentally. I wasn't making time to kind of exercise and look after myself, or making time to kind of reflect and think about all this stuff that was happening and how I was managing with it. And in a way, I was kind of stuck in this. I often think of it as like a pit of despair, or like you're in this kind of hole and you can't see a way out. You can't figure out how you can change things for the better. Uh, so I had to do something. I could recognize it, but I just didn't know what. I didn't know how I could make this change in so many areas of my life at the same time. And well, I think at this point, my kind of wife had had enough. She said, just take yourself out, go for a walk, just do something, make a change, try and kind of figure out what's going on. So the next day, I decided to do something different. I thought, I'm going to get up really early before anybody else gets up, and I'm just going to go for a walk, go to the beach, just sit there and just try and kind of think things through and figure out what's going on. And I was reading this book, which was ironically called The Art of Happiness, which is an interview with the Dalai Lama, which is really interesting. And there's this conversation with this guy who's interviewing. And at one point, he kind of, this phrase kind of came across, and the Dalai Lama says, you know, what in this moment is lacking And to me at that time, it kind of hit me like a punch in the face, this kind of phrase, because it kind of shook my kind of monkey mind that was kind of thinking about all these things and trying to kind of analyze it and work out a solution. Uh, and it got me to kind of think about where I was right then and right now. And it almost felt like it was the first time I'd done that for a long time, because my head was always in the past, thinking about things that had happened, or in the future and thinking about things that I needed to do or problems that I needed to solve. And when you think about it, what in this moment is lacking? Uh, Really, all there is this moment, and the intentions and the thoughts and the actions that you do now are really the only thing that are important. Uh, so I kind of took that kind of thinking, I guess, uh, from where I was, and it suddenly kind of empowered me to think, well, I've got a choice actually about this. If you think about it, in many ways, there are things in life that you can't change that happen to you, like my son becoming quite ill. But there's the other side of that, is in many ways you can change the way you think about those things. And essentially, that's what I've spent the last 8 or so years doing. After that kind of that's me on the beach somewhere having this little kind of aha moment. Uh, I suddenly realized I had a choice. So the last 8 years or so, I've spent loads of time finding out as much as I can about how people have applied this more kind of creative mindset to solving everyday problems that you come across in life. Uh, I've tried lots of kind of my own little experiments to try and figure out if there's a different way to do things. Uh, and one of the things that I did quite early on was ditched New Year's resolutions. Because when I thought about it, I thought this is crazy, right? Why do we wait until the end of the year to think about making life changes? Obviously, reflection is good, right? And it's an end point, so it encourages you to kind of look back. Uh, but yeah, it's a big time, isn't it? 365 days, a lot happens in that time. Imagine if we were working in delivery and we say, oh yeah, we'll deliver something in December, and then we do one delivery, and then that's it till next year. Uh, so I started to kind of think about that, and some of the things actually I picked up whilst working here. So thinking about things like agile and more iterative kind of way of doing things. I started to try and apply that to my everyday. Uh, but what's the deal with New Year's resolution? I'm surprised nobody's making one. Not one person. No? Anybody made resolutions in the past? Yeah, did they work for anyone? Few nods, couple of months. Um, I did a bit of research this because I kind of asked that question, like, why did we do it? Where does it come from? I thought it might be like a weird Victorian thing that the Victorians kind of started or something. But actually it goes back to 4,000 years ago. The Babylonians were the first people to have a kind of end of year reflection time. They had a god, I think it's called a Kitu, and they had a 12-day festival where they kind of it was all about sowing the barley or something. Uh, and it wasn't in January at this point, it was mid-March. So every year they had this mid-March kind of festival. It was 12 days, which sounds like a good party, doesn't it? 12-day festival. Uh, and they started this kind of whole idea. I think this is the first documented evidence of humans having this kind of cycle of celebration and reflection as well, and making conscious change. Uh, but the Romans almost played a bit of a part in it as well, because good old Julius Caesar established January, which is actually named after the god Janus, which frequently is symbolized as having two heads. So this god kind of looks back and looks forward at the same time, and that's why we have January. So you often actually I was in Bath at the weekend, and I could see old Janus. He's on lots of like doorways. You see an arch, and there'll be a little head on one side and a little head on the other side, and that's good old Janus. I think he's a god of doorways as well, or something, which is not quite as aspirational, is it, as having a month named after you. Uh, but apparently this year, about 27% of us will make New Year's resolutions. This is like a top 10 from last year. And often it's about things like health, physical health, mental health, finance. I thought there was quite interesting to see a big one on there about spending less time on social media. Maybe that's mental health as well, perhaps. Uh, Anybody tried any of these? Thinking about any of these for next year? Yeah, a few nods. Yeah. What's interesting, I guess, well, I felt it's interesting anyway, is younger people are more likely to make New Year's resolutions than older people. So about 52% of 18 to 24-year-olds plan to make New Year's resolutions this year, but only 16% of over 55. So we've got a lot of over 55s in the room. You don't have to answer that. It's not, yeah, so it's almost like the younger we are, the more likely we want to make a change, which I thought was quite interesting, or at least use a New Year's resolution to try and do that. But they're not very good. They're not very effective, New Year's resolutions. This is from a different survey, this is, but when you look at this, it's like, what, 65% have kind of given up by January. And only about 8% make that longer term change. I think 2 years is a bit of a weird kind of number to have as a length of time, but that's the way they've measured this particular survey. And one of the interesting things I found was actually this is something for your calendar. Like January the 12th is Quitters Day apparently. So some lots of research done with one of the health apps who make wristband things, watches as well, was done and they found that essentially this day in the UK is the day that many people abandon their New Year's resolution. So I'm thinking about running this session as a lunch and learn in the office on January the 12th as well. But that kind of number, I think it was also about many people gave up within the first 17 to 18 days of January on their New Year's resolution. Which is a shame, right? Because you kind of got this intention and you want to do something about it. So why did they give up? This is from the same survey, and I think the biggest reason was around losing motivation. And then there's this mysterious other reasons. I'm not a fan of pie charts, but this was a bit last minute. So yeah, 28% have got mysterious other reasons for giving up, which is probably, I don't know, can't be asked, maybe. Who knows? But what if there was a better way to make kind of life change, rather than just having this kind of intent, say, oh, let's try and change something. What if there was a better way? So I tried to make one. In a minute, we're going to try a bit of an experiment, and we're going to see if that can work. But first, let's think about this again. So right now, you're here, right? You've got your past and you've got your future, and you've got this present moment, this minute, where you have a choice about what you want to do with your life and what you want to do with your future and what you want to change. But to do that, we need to go back a little bit and think about what was last year like, or this year still, isn't it? Still this year. How did it go? And that is a tough question. And I have given you this. So what I want you to do is grab a piece of paper now and a pen, and we're going to try a little exercise.
Age related.
It's not age related.
Interesting to know. The age groups.
Oh yeah, could collate that afterwards, couldn't we? Create a graph like.
Did you start with it?
Okay. So first question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was your 2024? So all you've got to do for this is just write a number in the top left-hand side of your paper. Don't think about it too much. What's the first number that comes to your head? Don't overanalyze it. I'm not going to ask you what it is. Everybody got a number? Yeah. Okay. Why did you mark the way that you did? Why did you give it that number? That's a hard question, isn't it? Because 365 days is a long time. A lot happens in a year, but you must have some inclination of why you're giving it that number.
Gut feel.
Gut feel? It's often gut feel, yeah.
Couple of key events. Later, thinking that one.
Yeah. And do you think it gives you a balanced view of how the whole year went? Okay, so what would you change to improve that number? Do you have any thoughts about that? It's okay, you don't have to answer. Because it's a hard question, isn't it? Because when you think about it, that year is such a big length of time, and it's made up of lots of different types of experience. And I've done a bit of research into this in terms of quality of life. You know, how do you measure quality of life? And luckily, I don't have to kind of come up with this stuff because the World Health Organization has spent the last kind of 40 years or so creating what do they call it? They call it the WHO Organization Quality of Life Index, I think it's called. And they've kind of split it into four key areas, which are around physical health, psychological health, social relationships, and environment. And if you want to, you can do a survey. I think it's about 100 questions, which goes through all of this in its entirety to get you to assess all these different aspects of your life. There's also a short version as well, which is about 27 questions. Uh, but I think for me, what was interesting about this is to think about uh, the different aspects or different parts of life that are important. You know, in that example that I gave earlier, I was so focused, I think, on the problems that I was having or the challenges I was having at work and my kind of career. It was meaning that the other stuff in life that was important was getting less time or less mental energy or less attention. So, with this kind of in mind, I guess, what I want you to do now is draw a diagram of what your life's made up of. Don't worry, it doesn't need to be complicated. This is kind of what mine look like. I've got this kind of my life bit in the middle, and obviously family is really important. Uh, Health is really important. Home, work, and play is kind of I put it as play, but for me that's like the things that bring you joy. So the things like your hobbies or your the things that are not necessarily for any specific purpose or for your own enjoyment. So try and draw a diagram, something like that, your life in the middle, and think about what the 7 or 8 different things around that circle might consist of. Again, don't think about it too much. Got 2 minutes. About 60 seconds left. Ten seconds, then we'll move on. Okay, so hopefully you've got a circle in the middle with your life and some elements of that make up your kind of experience all around it. Yeah. But what I want you to do now is circle one that you want to change. So what aspects or one area that you've identified there that maybe didn't go so well last year, that this year or next year you want it to be better? So just choose one. Doesn't matter which one. You can change you change your mind later. You're not committing to anything. It's just one of those areas that you think, oh, actually, do you know what? Next year, I think I'm going to focus on that and improve it. I'm going to do something different. So the next question is, how are you going to change it? How do you change it? You've picked something, and we think, well, okay, well, where are we with that? What do you want to do about it? How are you going to change it? And for that, we kind of need to think about getting from there to thinking about what is it that we want, what was lacking from this year, or what do we want more of next year, and how are we going to get that? And that can seem a bit daunting because you're kind of thinking forward and there's a blank space, isn't there? How are you going to fill it? How are you going to structure that in a way that is going to be meaningful for you and enable you to make that change that you're looking to make? So luckily for you, I've created this canvas called the Change for Life canvas. And what we're going to do now is very quickly go through this canvas. It's more of a kind of thinking tool in many ways. It's not something that you kind of tie yourself into. It's just a tool to encourage you to think about that change in a structured way, which hopefully will make it stick. So if I can ask you to all come and collect one of the canvases from the front there. And I think Jonathan's going to try and share. What is helpful with this as well as it, and if you feel comfortable doing it, is if you do it in groups of twos or threes, so you can talk through it with each other. And by the way, I'm open to suggestions for a better name for this canvas as well. Okay, so let's start at the top then. So the area of your life that you're committing to improve it's the area that you've just circled. So if you just want to write what that area is from your previous piece of paper. And then try giving it that a score from 0 to 10. So how did that go last year, that area of your life? And then what do you want to change about that area? Give you a bit more time for that because that's quite a hard question. Just write a few bullets. You say this is just it's a thinking tool, so you can easily just throw it away, start a new one. You're not committing to anything. Okay. And this is a good one, a good question. Like, what stories are you telling yourself about this? What kind of limiting beliefs have you got about this change? Do you think that you're never going to make the time for it? Uh, Maybe somebody's told you can't do something. So this column that we've just looked at is all around the current state. Kind of where are we now? But where do we need to get to? What's the kind of future state? So if you gave it a score for current state, what would a good future state look like? Now you might just say, okay, it's going to be a 10. Or you might say, well, actually, last year it was a 6, 6.5. Maybe this year I'm going to try and get it to an 8. What seems realistic for you? And if you achieve this change, what would you think? How would it make you feel? That's quite a hard one. I think if you can kind of visualize or imagine what it would feel like if you achieve this change, it almost helps you to kind of try that out a little bit because you might find actually, that change seems all right, but actually I'm looking to go a bit further, I think. Try putting yourself in your kind of future use shoes, I guess. Imagine that it's this time next year and you've achieved that change. How would that feel? Okay, next question then. Who can support you? And by support, it might be just having a chat with somebody, or maybe someone who's had success in this particular area before, or maybe you can share this aspiration with somebody and you know that they'll be there for you and they'll be ready to kind of motivate you or keep you going when maybe times get a bit tougher. But who can support you? Could be multiple people as well. It doesn't need to be one person. Be as many people as you can think of. Okay, so this middle section is all about the actual change, the gap that you've got. And a question that is really important is around what's holding you back, what's stopping you from doing this change. Could be some kind of limitation, uh, could be a constraint like time or money or finance, but what's holding you back? What's preventing you from making the change? Mm. Next question then, what's motivating you to make the change? I often think it's quite interesting to think about how you can amplify that as well. You know, I don't know about you, but sometimes having like visual stimulus or something that you're looking at or see every day helps you to kind of keep you motivated and remind you that, oh, I'm doing this thing, I'm making this change. And why do you want to make this change? Why now? Why is it important? And there's another part to that in terms of what will happen if you don't. If you don't make this change, what's going to happen? So there's two questions there. Okay, the last bit then, and this is the most important bit in many ways, are these three stepping stones in the middle. So you're going from your current state over here, and by taking these steps, you're getting more towards your desired future state, what you want the future to look like. And what I want you to try and do is think about how can you make progress? We're starting from today. What's the one small thing that you can do today? It might just be a conversation, it might be an email, it might just be looking at a website or doing a little bit of research. But what one small action can you start doing today, which will help you move towards making this change? And then when you've done that, think about what you could do this week. Maybe there's a few things you could do this week. Maybe you can have more conversations or create a short plan or write a document or whatever it is that we're going to help you move towards. Maybe that's a slightly bigger task in the middle there. And then at the end, some idea of what you might do after that. You're not committing to anything. It's just putting those kind of thoughts into place about how you're going to progress with this particular change that you want to make. Okay, after that, you can relax. Come sit back down. Thank you very much for kind of taking part in that little experiment with me. Realize there's a lot of cognitive energy to be using at this time of the morning. But come and sit down. And that's your canvas now. I'd really love your feedback on it. And really love to hear if you actually use it or if it's helped you to think about change in maybe a more structured way. Uh, what I'm going to talk about now is give you some top tips, I guess, on what I've been doing or experimenting with for the last 8 years or so to escape this kind of default mode that I find myself in all that time ago. So tip number one, dream big but start small. That's kind of what you've just been doing in a little way. But one of the things that I try and do is I try and set long-term objectives, and usually I'll split them into kind of quarters. So I have like a almost like a 90-day kind of cadence, if you like. Uh, and I'll set kind of focus areas. So that activity that you've just done, I'll perhaps pick three areas of my life that I'm interested in changing or experimenting or exploring a little bit more. And I'll try and give myself some kind of objectives around that as well. Ideally, so there can be some sort of measurable kind of attachment to them as well. So this year I plan to write a book. So I'm not writing at all at the minute. I write intermittently, and I need to get into that habit of just writing every day. So I'm going to try and commit to writing 200 words a day. I won't beat myself up if I don't make it every day. But if I get, 5 out of 7, then I'll say, yay, I'm doing all right. So I'll have these kind of longer term kind of objectives, but I also take time for weekly reflection and try and take at least one action every day to feel like that progress is continuous. Uh, these are the kind of 5 questions. I normally do this on a Sunday evening. I'll just get a cup of tea or a small glass of something, get the kids to bed, spend half an hour kind of writing a journal or something, and I'll think about these questions. And you know, uh, these have changed over time, but they've kind of reflected, I guess, the things that I've realised that have become important. So that whole thing about caring for yourself, in the past, that's an area that I've really neglected. And actually, if you don't do that first, you're no good to your kids and your family and your friends if you're unwell or you've got kind of health issues. So I think that for me has become like a really key thing for me every week, is just to check in and ask, did I really look after myself this week? Uh, and then I've got these other questions as well around, did I work towards these objectives and what motivated me and what did I learn? And an element of gratitude as well. I think it's been shown that people that are grateful in life generally tend to be happier. So thinking about what am I grateful for this week? What went well? Or who should I reach out to say thank you? And then I spend about 5 minutes or so kind of prioritizing what I'm going to try and do the following week, which is going to help me with these kind of objectives. So having those kind of big long-term things, but trying to break them down to small, manageable tasks has become something that I've really tried to do over the last few years. This is maybe a bit more geeky. It's probably a bit more delivery manager inspired. This, you're going to like this. I love Trello. I'm a big Trello. I use Trello for all sorts of weird things. But perhaps one of the weirdest things is when we talk about like velocity, we talk about velocity a lot, don't we, in delivery? And when you think about what velocity is, it's kind of direction and movement. It's like two things. But we don't always know, do we, if we're going in the right direction? We say, oh, we've got this velocity, great. But often we forget, what are we delivering though? Is it adding any value, or are we just delivering stuff? Um, so I've got this kind of system that is a bit quirky, but essentially, when I'm thinking about tasks and things that I need to do, I'll just stick it in Trello. I won't think about it. I'll just stick it into Trello. I've got my own like little backlog of stuff that I could do, and it's broken down into like different aspects of life, like learning. P is me. That's me. Uh, and I try and keep this kind of, I call it, I don't know why I call it the focus 3 burger. It kind of looks like a burger. I'm only allowed to put 3 things in there, and that they're the 3 things that I need to do. Anything else can't go in anywhere. That's what I'm focused on right now. And that's just helped me kind of get laser focused a little bit on what I need to be doing. But the interesting side of this as well is it also enables me to kind of uh, measure my kind of burn down, or like what I'm doing when, and actually where I'm spending my energy and my time. And I've done this now for about 2 or 3 years, and you start to see cycles, and actually you start to recognize when you perhaps, for me, doing too much. You kind of get into that point where I think, oh, actually, these last few weeks have been pretty intense. I'm kind of hitting like 67, 68. I better be a bit more mindful next week, or make sure I'm taking time out to do other things. Uh, and it's given me some insight, I guess. So last in 2023, it gave me some insight into where I was spending my time. And I'm using that now to think about actually intentionally, how do I want to spend that time next year? Uh, so it's easy to kind of forget all that, particularly when it comes to the end of the year. You remember perhaps the holiday or the really great thing that happened, a graduation, or somebody passed a driving test or whatever. And all the other stuff in between gets forgotten a little bit. So this has given me some kind of insight into how I've spent my time so that I can do it more intentionally next year. Uh, One of the things that I would advise you to do to avoid losing momentum is join forces. So you've all taken part in this experiment today. Talk to each other about it. Ask each other about it. Uh, but one of the activities that I do with the kids and with the family actually at home is at the start of the new year, we have a bit of a family jam where we all come together. We put these post-it notes out across all the months of the year. And as a family, we all brainstorm stuff that we'd like to do this next year. And then we kind of filter that and sort it. And then we actually try and plan it into a calendar so that we know it's going to happen. We've got something to look forward to for the rest of the year. And often what we end up doing then is taking a picture of that and sticking it on the fridge. And at the end of the year, we also do a bit of reflection and have a look at how many of those things did we actually do? Did we do that? Did we do that? But it's a really nice way for us as a larger family, for everybody to get a bit of something to look forward to for the year, and everybody's joining with it. It's a bit more of a collaborative way to kind of plan ahead for the future. Create a smile file. Again, this is a good way to avoid losing momentum. I've told you I like Trello, so what I tend to do is every time something good happens or I'm thankful for it, I'll just stick it in a card in Trello. And what's really nice about this is over the years it's kind of built up. And whenever you're feeling like, oh, actually that's a bit hard, or I'm having a bit of a shit day, I can just look at that and think, God, look at all this amazing stuff that's happened. I don't know about you, but all this stuff gets lost in your photo kind of feeds or wherever you kind of post this stuff. So having this kind of like little place, this, I call it a yay me file, but you can call it a smile file. It's a really good way to kind of lift and think about the different things or the different experiences that you've had in a year that you enjoyed and maybe you want to do more of in the future. And the last point is just remember it's a journey. I think when you talk about New Year's resolutions, it seems like such a big thing, it's a big change, and just rest in the knowledge that you're enough. I really love this quote by this guy, Tim Brown, who's used to be the CEO of this company called IDEO, and he talks about thinking of life as a prototype. Try stuff, experiment, do things, and it really resonates with me, that kind of whole approach of not kind of getting too bogged down or thinking about things needing to be perfect. We're just trying stuff, see if it works, reflecting and just changing based on the feedback that you get. And in many ways, that's how we work, isn't it? And so why would you not apply that approach to your life as well, if it works? If you're interested in learning more, these are 3 really good books that are around kind of design thinking or maximizing your time to get the most out of it. This Make Time book is in particular, it's got some really good practical examples of how you can do some of this stuff. I think it's got something like, I don't know, they call them hacks, but there's like 100 hacks or something in there. But it's a really good insight into experiments that you can try for yourself and how you can prioritize things. And finally, yeah, go and make 2025 awesome. Thank you. If you get any questions, then feel free to ask them now. I've also set up a LinkedIn thing, which is on there. There's a link on there, which is just a bunch of people that are also interested in applying this kind of approach, mainly to the kind of idea of how do you improve your approach to parenting. So how do you use this kind of mindset, this design mindset, for the challenge of being a parent? Thank you. Do we have any questions? No?
Do you do if you find that some of the barriers to your want to do outside of your control, say money?
I think that's something that you have to accept, and that you have to accept that there are going to be things that happen that are outside your control. And you might be able to change that. Money's an interesting one, isn't it? You can certainly change how you think about that. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's 2 sides to it, aren't there? You can't, like, if the challenge is that you've not got enough money, then the challenge can be flipped. You can think about it in a different way. So how do you get that money, or do you need that amount of money, or is there a different way that you can solve the problem? So you can change the way that you think about the challenge, rather than try and change the thing that's out of your control, which is impossible, isn't it? Yeah.
you need this, that's the solution.
Yeah.
Space on it.
Yeah.
Kind of embarrassed. Yeah, get your money to. But it's going to be a strange one.
Yeah. I think it's more about asking why you need the money.
Yeah.
Anybody gonna make a New Year's resolution now?
Yeah, that's true about New Year's resolutions. You're almost looking for the praise before you've done anything.
Yeah, yeah. That's right.
Pat me on the back now.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
not done it.
yeah. I'm gonna lose a stone this year. Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's patting on the back. Oh, I don't think you've already lost a stone.
Yeah.
It's interesting, my family have a tradition of doing resolutions, if you like, for Christmas. We get together each year and go through the previous year.
Oh,
Actually have an awards.
oh, yeah.
The best out of it.
That's great.
Get on the scale.
I like that idea, almost like a commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't mention Tony, this conference.
Say that again. Oh, it's just Trello. Yeah, yeah. It's you can get a free. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So you normally use it for like stories and things, but I butcher it a little bit and stick pictures in and all sorts.
I've seen
They do, yeah, yeah. You can still get a free account though, at basic level. Okay. It could be, but it could be different. So why, I don't know, if you were thinking about why you need to make this change, say you were trying to improve your physical health, well, if you don't improve your physical health, then you might end up going to the GP more, you might needing to go to the hospital, or you might live a shorter life. But in terms of what's motivating you, it might be, well, actually, you just want to feel better about yourself, or, so they could be quite similar. I wouldn't overthink it too much. Like I said, that's just a tool, and don't feel constrained by it. If you want to cross bits out and change it and improve it, that's what it's there for. The initial purpose of it is just to kind of prompt thinking. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. We got a question.
That's fine. It's just a comment to my thing.
Okay, cool.
Cheers, everyone.
makes sense.
Thank you, Paul.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Question. How about if the barrier is knowledge? No,
5.
I don't know what I'm gonna do this week and after that.
Looking forward to YouTube.
Okay, so let's have a look. So reflect and make a plan. Okay. What is it that you're trying to do? Personal goal, life admin. Could you
Yeah. Read and kind of.
okay, well, what could you do this week for those things? Could you maybe contact some old friends that you've not been in touch with for a while? Could you set some time aside to do some reading, maybe?
Yeah.
Could you plan to go to the gym on a certain day, or go and decide how you're going to do your exercise